Admiral Kyle stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, watching the small blue planet turn slowly below him. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. Its white clouds swirled over green and brown continents, and its single moon hung nearby, like a pale guardian. It was hard to believe that this quiet world would soon belong to the hegemony. "Sir, we have completed our scans of the planet," reported his tactical officer. The young alien's purple skin gleamed under the bridge lights. The intelligence reports were correct. This species has barely reached basic space travel. We count only 17 ships in orbit around their world. Kale nodded with satisfaction. 17 ships. His fleet had 847 vessels, each one larger and more powerful than anything these humans could build. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. The Hegemony High Command had sent him here as a reward for his previous victories, a simple job to finish before his promotion to Fleet Admiral. "What about their ground defenses?" Kyle asked. "Primitive missile systems, sir. Some orbital platforms that appear to be for communications rather than defense. Their largest cities have basic energy shields, but nothing that could stop our bombardment cannons." Kyle smiled. Perfect. The humans would surrender quickly once they saw his fleet's power. Most civilizations did. The smart ones understood that resistance was pointless against the hegemony's might. On Earth's surface, deep beneath the bustling city of Seoul, General Tae-ho watched the same alien fleet through different eyes. The underground command center buzzed with activity as officers moved between screens showing tactical data from around the world. Red warning lights bathed everything in an urgent glow. "Sir, final count confirms 847. Hostile vessels," reported his tactical officer, Mina. Her voice stayed calm despite the terrible numbers. "They're maintaining position just outside our moon's orbit. No movement toward the planet yet." Tae-ho studied the main display screen. Each red dot represented an alien warship capable of destroying entire cities. Earth's entire space fleet looked like a handful of pebbles compared to this mountain of steel and weapons. "Have they tried to communicate?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Ambassador Jin Woo is handling first contact protocols from the diplomatic station." 2. Floors above them, Jin Woo sat in Earth's primary communications center. Banks of computers surrounded him, their screens showing translation algorithms working to decode the alien language. As Earth's most experienced diplomat, he had prepared for this moment his entire career, though he had always hoped it would never come. The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature had pale blue skin, large black eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Primitive humans of the third planet," the alien said through the translation system. "I am Admiral Kale of the Hegemony Third Conquest Fleet. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire." Jin Woo took a deep breath. "I am Ambassador Jin Woo, representing the United Earth Government. We welcome peaceful contact between our peoples." Admiral Kale's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "There is no negotiation, human. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Prepare your leaders for transport to our ships. Your military forces will lay down their weapons. Your population will be relocated to designated areas for processing." "And if we refuse?" Jin Woo asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then your cities burn, your armies die, and your people become slaves instead of citizens. The choice is yours, but the outcome remains the same. This world belongs to the hegemony now." The transmission ended, leaving Jin Woo staring at a blank screen. 72 hours. He activated his emergency communicator and sent a coded message to General Tae-ho. "The wolf is at the door." In her laboratory 3 levels deeper underground, Dr. Hai-jin received the same message. She looked up from the weapon components spread across her workbench. For 5 years, she had led Earth's most secret project. While the world above went about its normal business, she and her team had prepared for exactly this moment. Dr. Kim, "Dr. Park," she called to her assistants. "Initiate Protocol 7, contact all stations, tell them the game has begun." Around the world, similar scenes played out in hidden facilities. Under the streets of London, former mining engineer Jae Min received orders to activate the asteroid defense network. In a bunker beneath Tokyo, Intelligence Chief Yeonju began feeding false information into Earth's communication systems. Every person in these secret facilities had volunteered for a mission they hoped would never be necessary. Back on Admiral Kale's flagship, the crew celebrated their easy assignment. Junior officers boasted about which human cities they would claim as prizes. The ship's mess hall filled with laughter as soldiers shared stories of previous conquests. "This will be over before the main fleet even arrives," said Commander Vex, Kyle's second in command. "These humans can barely fly between their own planet and moon. They probably think we're gods." Kyle nodded, but something bothered him. In his 20 years of conquest, he had learned to trust his instincts. Every species reacted to the arrival of a hegemony fleet. Some sent desperate messages begging for mercy. Others launched hopeless attacks with whatever weapons they possessed. A few tried to flee to distant colonies. The humans had done none of these things. After their ambassador's brief conversation, Earth had gone quiet. No panicked communications. No military movements. No evacuation ships fleeing the system. It was as if the planet was simply waiting. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted his thoughts. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." Jin Woo's face appeared on the main screen again. This time he wore formal diplomatic robes and sat in what appeared to be an official government chamber. "Admiral Kale," Jin Woo said formally, "the United Earth government has reviewed your demands. We respectfully decline your offer of surrender." The key. Bridge fell silent. In 8 years of commanding conquest fleets, Kale had never heard those words. Species that couldn't fight always surrendered. It was basic survival instinct. "Human," Kyle said slowly. "Perhaps you did not understand. We have over 800 ships. You have 17. We can destroy your entire civilization in a matter of hours." Jin Woo's expression never changed. "We understand the odds, Admiral. But Earth does not surrender. If you want our world, you will have to take it." The transmission ended before Kale could respond. Around him, his officers looked confused and angry. Commander Vex stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. "Sir, they're either insane or hiding something we don't know about. Should we begin immediate bombardment?" Kyle stared at the blue planet below. Every military manual in the Hegemony Library said that overwhelming force led to quick surrender, but these humans seemed to operate by different rules. Were they bluffing? Did they have hidden weapons? Or were they simply too primitive to understand the situation? "No," he said finally. "We stick to standard protocol. Begin with targeted strikes on military installations. Show them what our weapons can do. Once they see a few of their cities burning, they'll come to their senses." What Admiral Kale didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this conversation for decades. Hidden sensors throughout the solar system had detected hegemony scout ships years ago. Human scientists had studied captured alien technology from crashed probes. Earth's greatest minds had spent sleepless nights planning for the day when a conquest fleet would arrive. General Tejo stood before a massive display showing every major city on Earth. Each location had a green status light indicating that evacuation to underground shelters was complete. The people above ground were volunteers, soldiers, engineers, and emergency workers who had chosen to stay and maintain the illusion of a normal world. "Mina, confirm all primary assets are secured," he ordered. "Yes, sir. All military personnel are in designated positions. Civilian populations are at 97% evacuation to deep shelters. Surface cities are operating with skeleton crews. And our orbital assets? The 17 ships are in position and broadcasting normally. All stealth platforms remain undetected. Dr. Hyajin reports that the hidden defense grid is fully operational." Tejo nodded. The hardest part of any plan was the waiting. Earth's strategy depended on the hegemony believing exactly what they wanted to believe, that humanity was weak, primitive, and easy to conquer. Every piece of evidence supported that conclusion. Earth's visible technology was decades behind hegemony standards. Their ships looked clumsy and poorly armed. Their cities appeared defenseless, but appearances could be deceiving. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their numbers. It was their willingness to sacrifice everything rather than surrender their freedom. The hegemony was about to learn that some species would rather burn their own world than see it conquered. Admiral Kyle gave the order to begin bombardment just as Earth's sun set over the Korean peninsula. He expected the humans to call for mercy within hours. Instead, he was about to discover that humanity's definition of victory was very different from his own. Captain Dong-hyun gripped the control stick of his defense ship as 3 hegemony scout vessels approached. His hands stayed steady, even though sweat ran down his face. The alien ships were twice the size of his vessel and armed with weapons that could cut through his hull like paper. But that was exactly what Earth needed them to think. "Sir, they're scanning us again," reported his weapons officer from the seat behind him. "Should I power up our defensive systems?" "No," Dong-hyun said quietly. "Let them see exactly what we want them to see. Keep all advanced systems offline. Make sure they only detect our basic engines and simple missile launchers." Through his cockpit window, he could see the sleek alien ships moving in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed like polished metal, and energy weapons glowed along their sides. Compared to them, his ship looked like an old cargo hauler with guns bolted onto it, which was exactly the point. The lead alien ship moved closer, its scanners sweeping over Dong-hyun's vessel. He knew they were recording every detail, the crude welding marks on his hull, the basic radar systems, the primitive communication, equipment, all of it carefully designed to look decades behind hegemony technology. "Human vessel," came a voice through his radio. The translation system made the alien sound bored and annoyed. "You will return to your planet immediately. Any interference with hegemony operations will result in your destruction." "Understood," Dong-hyun replied, making his voice sound nervous and scared. "We're just a patrol ship. We don't want any trouble." "Your weapons are pathetic," the alien continued. "Your ship moves like a sick animal. Return to your world and tell your leaders that resistance is hopeless." Dong-hyun turned his ship away, letting it drift slightly as if his engines were struggling. Behind him, the alien scouts continued their patrol, completely convinced that they had seen the best humanity could offer. They had no idea that hidden inside his ship were weapon systems that could punch through their shields, or that his seemingly clumsy movements had allowed him to map their patrol routes and weapon signatures. As soon as he was out of their sensor, Range, Dong-hyun activated a secure communication channel. Control, this is Falcon 1. The fish took the bait. They think we're using 20-year-old technology. Deep beneath Seoul, General Tae-ho received the report with satisfaction. Around him, the command center hummed with quiet efficiency. Officers monitored screens showing alien movements across the solar system. Every hegemony ship was being watched, cataloged, and analyzed. "Excellent work, Captain," Tae-ho replied. "Return to base. We have other roles for you to play." At the tactical station, Mina studied the alien fleet's deployment. They had arranged themselves in a standard conquest formation, heavy battleships in the rear, medium cruisers forming a screen, and fast attack ships patrolling the perimeter. It was the same pattern the hegemony had used to conquer 200 worlds. "Sir, they're following the textbook exactly," she reported. "No adaptation for local conditions. No attempt to understand our capabilities beyond surface scans." "Good," Tae-ho said. "Their arrogance is our advantage. Any word from Subin?" Across the city, in a basement that officially didn't exist, Subin coordinated with resistance cells around the world. Dozens of screens showed her agents in every major population center. Former soldiers, engineers, scientists, and ordinary citizens who had volunteered to play their parts in humanity's greatest deception. "Tokyo Cell reports successful misdirection," came a voice from one screen. "Hegemony scouts detected our fake military base. They believe our main defense center is in the old subway tunnels." "London Cell confirms," said another voice. "Alien. Reconnaissance drones photographed our decoy weapon factories. They're convinced our missile production is limited to basic chemical rockets." Subin smiled grimly. Every piece of false information was carefully crafted to reinforce the aliens' assumptions. The hegemony scouts saw exactly what they expected to see: a primitive world with outdated technology and limited defenses. They had no idea that Earth's real military infrastructure lay hidden deep underground, or that humanity had been preparing for this war for over a decade. "Moscow Cell, what's your status?" she asked. "All civilian evacuations complete, ma'am. Surface population is down to essential personnel only. Our fake government buildings are operational and ready for the show." In the asteroid belt beyond Mars, Jamin floated in his maintenance suit, making final adjustments to what appeared to be a broken mining platform. The massive structure looked like industrial junk: twisted metal beams, old drilling equipment, and scattered debris from years of asteroid mining operations. Hegemony scouts had passed this way 3 times, their sensors recording the platform as abandoned salvage. They never suspected that the debris contained the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built, or that Jamin's mining equipment could accelerate projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. "Platform 7 is operational," he reported through his encrypted communicator. "All weapon systems are online, but masked as industrial equipment. The aliens flew right past us an hour ago." Similar reports came from platforms throughout the Dae's asteroid belt. What looked like the remains of humanity's failed attempt at space mining was actually a defensive network that could strike anywhere in the solar system. Every piece of equipment had been designed to appear broken and worthless, while hiding its true capabilities. Back on Earth, Yeonju sat in her intelligence center, carefully managing the flow of information between human and alien systems. As Earth's master of deception, she controlled what the hegemony scouts could intercept from human communications. "Team Alpha, initiate desperate transmission sequence," she ordered. Around her, technicians began broadcasting fake emergency messages between Earth cities. The transmission spoke of panic, confusion, and a government struggling to respond to the alien threat. The messages were designed to be intercepted. Hegemony intelligence officers would decode them and report that humanity was in chaos. Political leaders arguing about surrender. Military commanders admitting they had no effective weapons. Civilian populations demanding their government give up rather than face destruction. All of it was lies, but lies that confirmed what the aliens wanted to believe. "Ma'am, Hegemony Command Ship is requesting detailed scans of our major cities," reported one of her technicians. "They want to identify primary targets for bombardment." "Give them exactly what they're asking for," Yanju replied. "Upload the prepared city scans. Make sure they see large populations, important government buildings, and critical infrastructure, all in the locations we want them to hit." The scans showed Earth's major cities as they appeared on the surface. Millions of people going about their daily lives, unaware that alien ships hung in orbit above them. Government buildings, power plants, communication centers, and military. Bases all appeared exactly where the aliens expected to find them. What the scans didn't show were the empty shells and carefully constructed decoys. The real populations had been evacuated to deep underground cities that didn't appear on any map. The actual government was operating from bunkers that the aliens couldn't detect. The true military infrastructure was hidden beneath layers of rock and steel that made it invisible to orbital scanners. Admiral Kale studied the intelligence reports from his flagship's war room. Everything confirmed his initial assessment. The humans were exactly what they appeared to be. A species that had barely reached space, with technology decades behind hegemony standards. "Sir, reconnaissance confirms that human military capabilities are minimal," reported his intelligence officer. "Their ships use simple chemical rockets. Their weapons are basic projectile and missile systems. Their defensive installations are limited to surface-based platforms with minimal range." "What about their population centers?" Kyle asked. "Densely packed cities with no significant underground infrastructure. Bombardment of 12 key locations should cause enough casualties to force immediate surrender. Their government appears to be centralized in traditional administrative buildings that we can target precisely." Kyle nodded with satisfaction. This conquest would proceed exactly as planned. A few demonstration strikes to show his fleet's power, followed by the humans' inevitable surrender. His career would benefit greatly from such an efficient victory. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're receiving another transmission from the planet's surface." Jin Woo appeared on the main screen, but this time he looked tired and desperate. His formal diplomatic robes had been replaced with simple clothing, and the background showed what appeared to be a hastily constructed emergency command center. "Admiral Kale," Jin Woo said, his voice shaking slightly, "our government has reconsidered your generous offer. Perhaps we can discuss terms for a peaceful surrender." "Now you show wisdom, human," Kale replied. "But the time for negotiation has passed. You refused our initial offer. Now you must accept unconditional surrender." "Please," Jinwoo continued. "Our people are frightened. Our leaders are divided. Give us more time to convince them that resistance is hopeless." Kale smiled coldly. "You have 6 hours to begin the surrender process. After that, we demonstrate what happens to species that waste our time." The transmission ended, and Kale's officers laughed among themselves. The humans were breaking exactly as expected. Fear was replacing their earlier defiance. Soon they would be begging for mercy. What they didn't know was that Jin Woo's desperate performance had been carefully rehearsed. Every word, every gesture, every detail of his appearance had been designed to reinforce the aliens' confidence in their superiority. In her underground laboratory, Hyejin made final preparations for the real war that was about to begin. Around. Her technicians activated weapon systems that the hegemony had never encountered. Energy weapons that could punch through any known shield. Projectile systems that could strike targets across the solar system. Defensive technologies that turned Earth's entire surface into a weapon. "All stations report ready," her assistant informed her. "Awaiting your orders to begin active operations." Hyejin looked at the countdown timer on her main screen. 4 hours until the hegemony's deadline. 4 hours until Admiral Kale discovered that humanity's greatest deception was making their enemies believe that the war would be easy. The first hegemony bombardment began at exactly noon, Earth time. Admiral Kale had chosen the target carefully, New York City, one of humanity's largest population centers. From his flagship, he watched as his heavy cruisers lined up their massive plasma cannons and prepared to demonstrate the price of defiance. "Fire!" he commanded. Brilliant beams of energy lanced down from orbit, striking the heart of Manhattan. Explosions bloomed across the city as buildings collapsed and fires spread through the streets. The destruction was exactly what Kale had expected, total and devastating. What he didn't expect was what happened next. Deep beneath the ruins of New York, in tunnels that stretched for hundreds of miles under the city, Colonel Min-ho received the signal he had been waiting for. Around him, thousands of soldiers emerged from hidden positions in what the aliens thought were natural cave systems. The underground complex was actually one of Earth's largest military bases, carved from solid rock over the past 10 years. "All units, this is command," Min-ho spoke into his communicator. "The surface show is over. Begin Phase 1 operations. Let's remind these aliens that Earth has teeth." Above ground, the hegemony landing ships descended through the smoke and flames of the bombed city. Admiral Kale had sent them to secure the area and begin processing survivors. Instead, they found something impossible. The first landing ship touched down in what used to be Central Park. As alien soldiers marched down the ramp, the ground beneath them exploded upward. Hidden missile launchers rose from concealed positions, while armored vehicles emerged from underground garages that hadn't existed on any alien scan. "Contact! Contact!" screamed the alien squad leader as human soldiers appeared from everywhere at once. The carefully planned landing became a massacre as Earth's real military revealed itself. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In London, former astronaut So Young led her commando team through abandoned subway tunnels, striking at alien patrols before disappearing back into the underground network. The tunnels connected every major building in the city, allowing her teams to appear anywhere without warning. "Target acquired!" So Young whispered into her throat microphone as she watched a group of alien soldiers searching a destroyed office building. 6 hostiles, standard patrol formation." Her team moved, with practiced silence. Years of training in Earth's underground cities had prepared them for exactly this type of warfare. The aliens were used to fighting in open space or on the surface of conquered worlds. They had no experience with enemies who could appear from beneath their feet. The attack was over in seconds. Advanced human weapons, hidden from alien scanners, cut through hegemony armor like it was made of paper. By the time reinforcements arrived, So Young's team had vanished back into the tunnel system. In Earth's orbit, Captain Wu Jin piloted what appeared to be a piece of space junk. His ship was disguised as debris from an old satellite, complete, with fake damage and a cold hull that gave off no energy signatures. He had been drifting among the orbital wreckage for 3 days, waiting for the perfect moment. "Target locked," his weapons officer reported quietly. "Hegemony cruiser is maintaining position over the bombardment zone. Shields are down. They're..." not expecting any threat. "Fire!" Wu Jin ordered. What the aliens thought was space garbage suddenly blazed to life. Hidden weapon systems activated, and a stream of projectiles struck the hegemony cruiser's unprotected hull. The ship's armor, designed to stop energy weapons, couldn't handle the kinetic impact of humanity's railguns. Explosions tore through the alien vessel as its reactor went critical. Wu Jin was already moving, his ship's stealth systems making him invisible again before the other alien ships could locate him. "Control, this is Ghost 1, he reported through encrypted communications. "Target eliminated, moving to secondary position." Admiral Kyle stared at his tactical display in disbelief. One of his cruisers was gone, destroyed by an enemy that supposedly had no weapons capable of threatening his ships. His ground forces were reporting heavy casualties from attacks that came from impossible directions, and his intelligence officers were frantically trying to understand how they had gotten everything so wrong. "Sir, we're receiving reports from all landing zones," his tactical officer said, fear creeping into his voice. "The humans have military installations that don't appear on any of our scans. They're using underground tunnel networks that our satellites couldn't detect. Their weapons technology is far more advanced than we believed." "That's impossible," Kale snapped. "Our scouts confirmed their primitive capabilities. We scanned their cities, their ships, their communication systems. Everything indicated a backward civilization." But the evidence was undeniable. Human soldiers were using energy weapons that could penetrate hegemony armor. Their underground facilities were shielded against orbital bombardment. Their hidden ships were striking his fleet with weapons that shouldn't exist. On Earth's surface, Dr. Boram activated the planet's greatest secret. For years, humanity had built what appeared to be civilian infrastructure: communication satellites, weather monitoring stations, power plants, and transportation networks. The aliens had dismissed all of it as primitive technology. They were wrong. "Initiating planetary defense grid," Boram announced from her command center beneath the Sahara Desert. Around the world, every piece of civilian technology began to reveal its true purpose. Communication satellites unfolded hidden weapon arrays. Weather stations began generating electromagnetic storms that interfered with alien sensors. Power plants redirected their energy to massive ground-based cannons that had been disguised as cooling towers. Even the global internet became a weapon, as Earth's computer networks launched coordinated cyber attacks against every hegemony system they could reach. The transportation network was perhaps the most clever deception. What the aliens thought were simple roads and railways were actually a planet-wide logistics system for moving military equipment. Subway tunnels connected to underground bases. Highway systems could be rapidly converted to missile launch sites. Airport runways doubled as landing strips for aircraft that officially didn't exist. "Sir, we're under attack from the planet's entire infrastructure," reported Kale's chief engineer, panic clear in his voice. "Their communication satellites are jamming our sensors. Ground-based weapons are firing from civilian areas. Even their power grid seems to be weaponized." Admiral Kyle felt something he hadn't experienced in years of conquest: fear. This wasn't how wars were supposed to work. Superior technology was supposed to guarantee victory. Overwhelming force was supposed to make enemies surrender. But these humans seemed to operate by completely different rules. In her cyber warfare center, Hyunwoo smiled as her fingers danced across multiple keyboards. For months, she had been studying captured hegemony technology, learning how their systems worked. Now that knowledge was paying off as she infiltrated alien networks with devastating efficiency. "I'm inside their tactical network," she reported to her team. They're using standard hegemony encryption protocols. No adaptation for local threats. I can see their fleet positions, communication channels, even their supply schedules. Her screens showed the locations of every alien ship in the solar system. More importantly, they showed the aliens' plans for the next phase of their attack. Admiral Kale was preparing to call for reinforcements, convinced that Earth had hidden capabilities that required a larger fleet to overcome. "Upload the false data packets," Hyun-woo ordered. Her team began feeding carefully crafted misinformation into the alien network. Fleet positions that didn't exist, weapon capabilities that were exaggerated, casualty reports that made human resistance seem weaker than it actually was. The beauty of the cyber attack was that the aliens would never suspect it. Their own arrogance worked against them. They couldn't imagine that a primitive species could hack their advanced systems. Lieutenant Yoon-ji coordinated with Sang-hyuk's special operations teams as they began targeting hegemony command ships. Using stolen alien technology that had been reverse-engineered over years of secret research, her commandos could blend in with alien forces long enough to plant devastating surprise attacks. Team Alpha reports successful infiltration of enemy supply convoy, she announced to the underground command center. They've placed charges on the ammunition transport, detonation in 30 seconds. The explosion lit up the night sky as thousands of tons of alien ordnance went up at once. The blast was visible from orbit, a clear message that humanity's war was just beginning. But perhaps the most effective weapon was something the aliens couldn't fight with guns or ships. Lieutenant Bit Na managed Earth's psychological warfare. Operations, ensuring that every human casualty had maximum impact on alien morale. Broadcasting on all hegemony channels, she reported. Message is simple. Earth doesn't surrender. Every city you destroy will cost you 10 ships. Every human you kill will be avenged tenfold. This world will be your grave. The message was transmitted in perfect hegemony language, using captured alien equipment. More importantly, it was backed up by results. For every human city that burned, alien ships died. For every bombardment, underground forces struck back with interest. Admiral Kyle realized that his easy conquest had become a nightmare. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. His fleet was taking casualties at a rate that made no sense. His ground forces were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Worst of all, he was starting to understand that everything he thought he knew about humanity was a lie. Their primitive appearance was camouflage. Their apparent weakness was a trap. Their desperate pleas for mercy had been theater, designed to make him overconfident and careless. The war for Earth had begun, and the hegemony was losing. The war had been raging for 6 weeks, and Admiral Kale no longer recognized the confident officer who had arrived at Earth expecting an easy victory. Dark circles ringed his eyes from sleepless nights, spent trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. His fleet, once numbering 847 ships, had been reduced to fewer than 600. And the humans showed no signs of weakening. "Sir, we've lost another supply convoy," reported his increasingly nervous tactical officer. "The humans hit the transport ships while they were refueling at the outer system depot. They used some kind of stealth technology we can't detect until it's too late." Kyle stared at the tactical display showing red markers where his ships used to be. Each marker represented hundreds of trained soldiers and billions of credits worth of military equipment. The Hegemony High Command was starting to ask uncomfortable questions about his progress. "How many ships did we lose this time?" he asked wearily. "4 supply vessels and 2 escort cruisers, sir," The attack lasted less than 10 minutes. Our reinforcements arrived to find nothing but debris and radiation signatures. What Kale didn't know was that Captain Wu Jin had led that attack using a squadron of ships that officially didn't exist. Hidden among the asteroids of the outer system, Earth's secret fleet had been built over decades using resources the aliens never knew existed. Every mining operation had been a cover for military construction. Every failed space program had actually been testing new weapons technology. On Earth's surface, the war had settled into a grinding pattern that favored the defenders. Hyunwoo's cyber warfare division had achieved something unprecedented. They had gained permanent access to the hegemony's military networks. From her underground command center, she could watch alien fleet movements in real time and feed false information to their commanders. "I'm reading Admiral Kale's personal. Communications now," she reported to General Tae-ho during their daily briefing. "He's requesting additional reinforcements from the High Command. They're not happy with his casualty reports." "What are they telling him?" Tae-ho asked. "The High Command is questioning his competence. They expected this conquest to be completed within 2 weeks. Instead, he's asking for more ships and more time. Some members of their war council are suggesting he be replaced." Hyunwoo's fingers moved across her keyboards as she accessed deeper levels of the alien network. The hegemony's computer systems were advanced, but they were also standardized across their entire empire. Once you understood how to break into one system, you could access them all. "Sir, I'm also monitoring their casualty reports," she continued. "They're not just losing ships to our attacks. Morale problems are spreading throughout their fleet. Soldiers are requesting transfers away from Earth. Some are even deserting." This was exactly what Earth's psychological warfare teams had hoped to achieve. Lieutenant Bitna had spent weeks crafting messages designed to demoralize the alien forces. Every broadcast emphasized the same themes. Earth would never surrender, the cost of conquest would only increase, and the hegemony was throwing away lives for a worthless victory. But the psychological campaign went deeper than simple propaganda. Bitna had studied captured hegemony soldiers and learned about their culture and fears. The aliens valued quick, decisive victories. Their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming force, leading to immediate surrender. A long, grinding war was alien to their experience and deeply disturbing to their psychology. "Broadcasting today's message," Bitna announced from her studio, deep beneath the ruins of London. "Target audience is hegemony enlisted personnel. Theme is the futility of their sacrifice." The message went out on frequencies that hegemony soldiers used for personal communication. It spoke directly to their fears and doubts, reminding them that they were fighting for the glory of commanders who would never share the dangers of battle. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Yoon-ji was coordinating the war's most ambitious operation yet. Working with Sang-hyuk's Special Forces teams, she was planning to capture one of the hegemony's command ships, not just attack it, but actually board and seize control of an enemy vessel that could provide invaluable intelligence. Team Alpha is in position near the target, she reported from the tactical center. Team Beta has disabled the escort ship's sensor arrays. Team Gamma is standing by to jam communications once the boarding begins. The target was a hegemony cruiser that had been isolated from the main fleet while investigating what appeared to be wreckage from a human transport. In reality, the wreckage was bait, designed to lure the alien ship into a trap. "All teams, begin the operation," Yoon-ji ordered. What followed was unlike anything in the history of space warfare. Human commandos using captured alien equipment, and technology reverse-engineered from years of secret research infiltrated a functioning enemy warship while it was still in combat operations. The boarding party moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, using alien uniforms and forged identification to avoid detection until they reached the bridge. The battle for control of the ship lasted only minutes, but it gave Earth access to everything. Navigation data, fleet communications, tactical doctrines, and most importantly, the personal files of every hegemony officer in the system. "Sir, we have a problem," Admiral Kale's intelligence officer announced, his voice shaking with fear. "The humans have captured the cruiser Vengeance. They're broadcasting our tactical frequencies. They know our fleet positions, our supply schedules, everything." Kale felt his world collapse around him. Bad enough that the humans were winning battles they should have lost. Worse that they were using technology that supposedly didn't exist. But the idea that they had captured an intact hegemony warship was beyond disaster. It was humiliation on a scale that would end his career and possibly his life. "How is that possible?" he demanded. "The Vengeance had a full crew and escort ships. How could primitives capture a hegemony cruiser?" But even as he asked the question, Kale knew the answer. The humans weren't primitives. They never had been. Everything his scouts had reported, everything his intelligence officers had confirmed, everything he had believed about Earth's capabilities had been a carefully crafted lie. Across the solar system, the war's economic impact was starting to show. Kyung-ho, Earth's logistics coordinator, had studied the business side of hegemony conquests and understood something that many military leaders missed. Wars were expensive, and the longer they lasted, the more they cost. "Our strategy is working," he reported to the Underground Council that coordinated Earth's resistance. "The hegemony expected to spend 2 weeks here and move on to their next conquest. Instead, they've been fighting for over a month with no end in sight." Kyung-ho's analysis showed that the alien fleet was consuming supplies faster than they could be replaced. Every ship they lost had to be rebuilt. Every soldier who died had to be replaced and retrained. Every week the war continued cost the hegemony resources they could have used for other conquests. More importantly, he continued, other species are watching. Our resistance is inspiring rebellions on worlds the hegemony has already conquered. They can't afford to keep their entire fleet here when their empire is starting to fracture. This was perhaps humanity's greatest weapon, proving that the hegemony could be fought and beaten. For decades, species across the galaxy had surrendered rather than face what seemed like inevitable defeat. But Earth was showing that even overwhelming odds could be overcome with the right strategy and enough determination. Communications specialist Ah Young monitored alien transmissions from her station beneath the Arctic ice. What she heard confirmed that Earth's strategy was working better than anyone had dared hope. "Sir, I'm intercepting communications between hegemony fleet commanders," she reported. "They're arguing about the war's progress. Some want to withdraw and declare Earth too costly to conquer. Others want to call in the entire Third Fleet to finish the job." "What's Admiral Kale's position?" asked General Tae-ho. "He's caught in the middle. His superiors are demanding results, but his officers are telling him the humans are too strong to defeat with current forces. He's requested reinforcements 3 times, but the High Command is starting to question whether Earth is worth the cost." This was exactly the situation Earth's planners had hoped to create. The hegemony wasn't just losing ships and soldiers. They were losing confidence. Their doctrine of quick, overwhelming victory had failed completely. Now they faced a choice between admitting defeat or escalating to a level that might destabilize their entire empire. Admiral Kale stood on his bridge, looking down at the blue world that had become his nemesis. 6 weeks ago, he had been a rising star in the hegemony military, destined for promotion and glory. Now he was a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating an enemy. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving another message from the High Command." Kale knew what the message would say before he heard it. More questions about his competence, more demands for immediate results, more threats about the consequences of failure. The hegemony didn't accept excuses, only victories. But as he stared at Earth, Kale was beginning to understand something that his superiors refused to acknowledge. Some victories cost more than defeats. Some conquests were traps disguised as prizes, and some species would rather destroy themselves than accept submission. The humans had turned war itself into a weapon, and the hegemony was bleeding to death from 1,000 cuts. 10 weeks into the war, Quartermaster General Sung Min stood before a holographic display showing the galaxy's trade routes. Each glowing line represented billions of credits in commerce, and many of those lines now showed dangerous interruptions. The war for Earth was no longer just about one small blue planet. It was bleeding the hegemony's entire empire. "Gentlemen," Sung Min addressed the Underground Council, "our strategy is succeeding beyond our best projections. The hegemony has committed over 1,000 ships to this system. Those ships aren't available for their other conquests, their trade, protection, or their garrison duties across 200 worlds." The holographic display zoomed in on specific sectors where hegemony control was weakening. Red warning indicators marked rebellions on dozens of planets. Yellow alerts showed delayed conquest schedules. Orange markers indicated supply line disruptions that were cascading throughout their empire. "More importantly," Sung Min continued, "Earth's resistance has inspired uprisings on 43 conquered worlds. The hegemony is facing the largest coordinated rebellion in their history, and it's all because we proved they could be fought." General Tejo studied the display with satisfaction. This had always been Earth's ultimate goal, not just to survive, but to break the myth of hegemony invincibility. Every day humanity held out was another day for oppressed species across the galaxy to realize that their conquerors were not gods. Above the ruins of New Geneva, Commander Ji-Wan crouched in what used to be the city's financial district. The buildings around her were twisted metal and broken concrete, but they provided perfect cover for the urban warfare that had become her specialty. Her unit had been fighting in these ruins for 3 weeks, and they had turned every street into a killing ground for alien patrols. "Control, this is Defender 1. She spoke into her communicator. "Enemy battalion is moving through Sector 7. They're using the same route as yesterday. Recommend we give them the full treatment." Ji-Wan's fighters weren't professional soldiers. They were teachers, mechanics, doctors, and office workers who had volunteered to stay on the surface when the evacuations began. But weeks of combat had turned them into something the hegemony had never encountered before. Civilians who fought like veterans and knew every inch of their home ground. "Understood, Defender 1, came the reply. "All units are in position. Begin broadcasting sequence." Ji-Wan activated her emergency transmitter, sending a coded message that would be picked up by receivers across the solar system and beyond. The message was simple but powerful. Footage of her small unit destroying an entire alien battalion, proof that humans would fight for every building, every street, every inch of their world. The broadcast was received on dozens of worlds throughout hegemony space. On the mining planet Kresh, workers saw humans fighting impossible odds and decided they could do the same. On the agricultural world Venter, Farmers watched human civilians defeat trained alien soldiers and realized that oppression wasn't inevitable. "The signal is spreading," reported Tae Young from his communications center hidden beneath the Australian desert. "We're receiving confirmation of uprisings on 17 more worlds just today. The rebellion is spreading faster than the hegemony can respond." As Earth's coordinator for off-world operations, Tae Young had spent years building secret communication networks with resistance groups throughout hegemony space. Many of these groups had existed for decades, waiting for the right moment to act. Earth's example was providing that moment. "Sir, we're also receiving reports from human colonies in other systems," Tae Young continued. "The settlements we established before the war are declaring independence and offering sanctuary to alien refugees. The hegemony is losing control of entire sectors." This was another part of Earth's long-term strategy that the aliens had never suspected. Humanity's seemingly modest space exploration program had actually been establishing strategic outposts throughout the galaxy. These colonies appeared to be simple farming or mining settlements, but they were actually military bases that could support resistance operations. In her diplomatic center, Chief Negotiator Na Yoon was conducting the most delicate conversations of her career. Through encrypted channels, she was speaking directly with moderate members of the hegemony high command, aliens who were beginning to question whether their empire's aggressive expansion was sustainable. "Ambassador Na-un," came the voice through the translator, belonging to a hegemony counselor named Vex. "Our military advisors tell us that conquest of your world is still possible, but the cost continues to rise. Perhaps it is time to discuss alternative arrangements." Na-un smiled grimly. This was the conversation Earth had been working toward for 10 weeks. "Counselor Vex, we appreciate your willingness to talk. But you must understand that any negotiations must begin with the complete withdrawal of your forces from our system. That would be difficult to arrange," Vex replied carefully. "Admiral Kyle has invested significant resources in this campaign. A withdrawal without victory would damage the hegemony's reputation." "Your reputation is already damaged," Na-un said bluntly. "Every day this war continues, more worlds rebel against your rule. Every ship you lose here weakens your ability to maintain control elsewhere. The question isn't whether you can conquer Earth. It's whether your empire can survive the cost of trying." The negotiation continued for hours, but Na-un could hear the doubt in the alien counselor's voice. The hegemony's political structure was fracturing under the pressure of an unexpectedly expensive war. Military commanders were blaming politicians for unrealistic expectations. Politicians were blaming generals for tactical failures, and subject worlds were taking advantage of the chaos to declare independence. Deep in his analysis center, intelligence, Officer Dongmin studied patterns of hegemony fleet movement throughout the galaxy. What he saw confirmed his worst fears and Earth's best hopes. "Sir, the aliens are pulling ships from garrison duty to reinforce their fleet here," he reported. To General Taiho, "They've withdrawn protection from 12 conquered worlds to maintain their siege of Earth. It's exactly what we hoped they would do." The display showed hegemony vessels converging on Earth from across their empire. On the surface, it looked like bad news for humanity. More enemy ships meant more firepower pointed at their world. But Dongmin understood the deeper implications. "Every ship they bring here is a ship that isn't protecting their supply lines, guarding their trade routes, or suppressing rebellions," he explained. "They're turning their entire military into a hammer, but Earth isn't a nail. We're an anvil that's breaking their hammer with every blow." The strategic situation was becoming clear to anyone who looked beyond the immediate battle. The hegemony was committing more and more resources to a war that was costing them their entire empire. They were winning tactical victories while losing the strategic war. Admiral Kyle received the message he had been dreading during his morning briefing. The seal of the Hegemony High Command appeared on his personal communicator, followed by the voice of Supreme Commander Jacques. "Admiral Kale," the voice said coldly, "your performance in the Earth sector has been reviewed by the full Council. The High Command is displeased with your progress." Kyle felt his stomach clench. In the Hegemony military, displeasure from the High Command was often a death sentence. "Supreme Commander," he replied carefully, "the humans have proven more resourceful than initial intelligence indicated. However, with the reinforcements you've provided, victory is still achievable." "At what cost, Admiral? You have lost over 400 ships. You have tied up a third of our active fleet for 10 weeks. Your war has inspired rebellions on 50 worlds. Some members of the Council are questioning whether Earth is worth conquering at all." The words hit Kale like physical blows. Everything the Supreme Commander said was true, but admitting it would end his career. "Sir, if we withdraw now, every species in the galaxy will see it as proof that the hegemony can be defeated. The damage to our reputation would be irreparable. And if we continue, Admiral, the damage to our fleet may be irreparable instead. You have 30 days to achieve decisive victory. If Earth has not surrendered by then, the High Command will consider alternative strategies." The communication ended, leaving Kale alone with his fears. Alternative strategies could mean anything from his replacement to the complete destruction of Earth's biosphere. Neither option offered him a path to redemption, but as he stared at the tactical displays showing his diminished fleet, Admiral Kale was beginning to understand a truth that the High Command refused to acknowledge. Some wars couldn't be won through force alone. Some enemies became stronger when you tried to crush them, and some victories cost more than any defeat. The humans had done something unprecedented in hegemony history. They had turned a military conquest into a political revolution. Every day Earth survived was another day for the galaxy to see that the mighty hegemony could be fought, could be bloodied, and could be beaten. The war for Earth was no longer about one world. It had become a war for the soul of the galaxy itself, and the hegemony was losing on every front that mattered. Deep Space Monitoring Specialist Jun Ho detected the first signs of hegemony withdrawal 3 days before Admiral Kale gave the official order. From his hidden station on the dark side of Earth's moon, Jun Ho watched as alien supply ships began, moving away from the main battle zone instead of toward it. "Control, this is Deep Eye," he reported through encrypted channels. "Enemy logistics pattern has changed. They're staging resources for departure, not reinforcement. I estimate 72 hours until they begin full withdrawal." In the underground command center beneath Seoul, General Tae-ho received the report with mixed feelings. After 12 weeks of grinding warfare, Earth had achieved the impossible. They had forced the mighty hegemony to retreat. But victory would come at a terrible price. "All stations, this is command," Tae-ho broadcast to resistance cells worldwide. "The enemy is preparing to leave, but they won't go quietly. Expect massive retaliation strikes against all surface positions. Begin final evacuation protocols immediately." Admiral Kale stood on his flagship's bridge, staring at the blue world that had destroyed his career and broken his fleet. Of his original 847 ships, fewer than 400 remained combat effective. The rest were destroyed. damaged beyond repair, or had deserted to avoid the meat grinder that Earth had become. "Sir, the High Command is demanding our immediate withdrawal," reported his tactical officer. Supreme Commander Jacques' message was quite specific about the consequences of delay. Kyle nodded grimly. The ultimatum had arrived exactly as expected. 30 days to achieve victory, or face replacement by someone who would turn Earth into a lifeless rock. But even total destruction would be seen as failure now. The entire galaxy was watching, and anything less than pristine conquest would prove that the hegemony could be defeated. "Prepare the fleet for departure," Kale ordered. "But first we send these humans a farewell gift they'll never forget." Commander Haywan watched the alien fleet's movements from her position aboard one of Earth's 17 remaining visible defense ships. Her vessel was badly damaged from weeks of combat, held together by emergency repairs and the determination of her crew. But it was still functional, and that was all she needed for the final act of humanity's deception. "All ships, this is Command 1, she broadcast on open channels that she knew the aliens would intercept. "Enemy fleet is massing for final assault. All vessels prepare for emergency evacuation. This is not a drill." The message was designed to be heard by hegemony intelligence officers. It painted a picture of desperate humans finally breaking under the pressure of superior alien technology. Ships fleeing the system in panic, abandoning their homeworld to inevitable destruction. What the aliens couldn't know was that the fleeing ships were actually moving into attack position. Admiral Kale watched with satisfaction as 17 human vessels began accelerating away from Earth. After 12 weeks of impossible resistance, the humans were finally doing what every other species did when faced with overwhelming force. They were running. "Sir, the human ships are broadcasting distress signals," reported his communications officer. "They're requesting safe passage, out of the system. Some are claiming to be carrying civilian refugees." "Ignore them," Kale ordered. "Let them flee. When the other species hear how Earth's defenders abandoned their world, it will restore some of our reputation." But the Supreme Commander's orders were explicit. Earth's cities had to burn as an example to any other worlds considering rebellion. The planet's surface would be scoured clean, leaving nothing but a radioactive wasteland as a warning to the galaxy. "Begin bombardment of all major population centers," Kale commanded. "Maximum yield. I want this world to glow for 1,000 years." The hegemony fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Plasma beams that could crack continents lanced down from orbit. Fusion bombs that could level mountain ranges exploded across Earth's surface. The planet's atmosphere began to burn as massive energies tore through the biosphere. In his underground engineering complex, Gunwoo watched the destruction through sensors that had survived the initial bombardment. The devastation was real and terrible. Entire cities vanished in nuclear fire, forests turned to ash, oceans boiled away in some regions. But it was also exactly what Earth had prepared for. "Structural integrity holding at 93%, he reported to his team. "The surface installations performed perfectly. All critical infrastructure remains protected." For years, Gunwoo's engineers had worked on the ultimate deception, making Earth's cities look like they were burning when the real population centers remained safe in deep underground caverns. Holographic projectors created the illusion of massive fires. Chemical. Plants released clouds that looked like radioactive fallout. Carefully placed explosives simulated the destruction of major buildings. The real cities, the real people, the real military infrastructure, All of it was hidden beneath layers of rock and steel that could survive anything short of cracking. The planet in half. From the ruins of what used to be Paris, war correspondent Ye Jin broadcast humanity's response to the galaxy. Her transmission was picked up by secret receivers on hundreds of worlds, carrying Earth's message to every species under hegemony rule. "This is Earth calling," she said, standing in the smoking wreckage of a city that looked completely destroyed. "You came to our world expecting easy conquest. You found 12 weeks of hell. You're leaving now because you cannot afford to stay. But remember this, Earth stands. We bled you for every day you spent here. We made you pay for every mile of ground, and when you're gone, we'll still be here." The broadcast continued for several minutes, but its core message was simple and devastating. The mighty hegemony had been fought to a standstill by a single world. They were retreating not because of mercy, but because of cost. Every species in the galaxy would understand what that meant. Admiral Kyle ordered his fleet to depart even as the bombardment continued. He wanted to be far from Earth when the High Command reviewed his mission reports. Perhaps distance would soften their judgment. Perhaps the destruction of Earth's surface would count as some kind of victory. He never noticed that 17 small ships were following his retreat. Captain Chang Ho commanded the lead vessel in what appeared to be humanity's fleeing defense fleet. His ship looked battered and desperate, broadcasting emergency signals that painted a picture of survivors barely escaping their world's destruction. The hegemony ships ignored them completely, just as planned. All ships maintain formation. Chang Ho ordered through encrypted communications. Stay in their sensor shadows. They still think we're refugees. But as the alien fleet moved away from Earth, Chang Ho's ships began to change. Hull panels slid away to reveal weapon systems that had never appeared on any alien scan. Engines that had seemed damaged suddenly blazed with full power. The 17 fleeing ships transformed into something the hegemony had never encountered, Earth's real military force. "Target the flagship," Chang Ho ordered. "Let's give Admiral Kyle a proper goodbye." The attack came without warning. Weapons that shouldn't exist tore through hegemony shields like they were made of paper. The aliens' rear guard vanished in explosions of light and metal, and at the center of the formation, Admiral Kale's mighty flagship shuddered under impacts, from technology that his scientists insisted was impossible. "All ships, return fire!" Kyle screamed, but his fleet was in full retreat formation, not ready for combat. The human ships struck like ghosts, appearing from nowhere to deliver devastating attacks before vanishing back into space. In the aftermath, as his damaged fleet limped toward the edge of the solar system, Admiral Kyle realized the final truth about humanity's deception. The 17 ships weren't refugees fleeing a destroyed world. They were the vanguard of a military force that had been hidden for decades, waiting for exactly this moment. Earth hadn't just survived the hegemony's assault, it had been strengthened by it. Every attack had revealed alien weaknesses. Every battle had taught human engineers how to build better weapons. 12 weeks of war had transformed Earth from a hidden military power into something that could challenge the hegemony throughout the galaxy. New military commander Seo Jun addressed the United Nations from a chamber that didn't officially exist. Around him sat representatives of species from across the galaxy, aliens who had fled hegemony rule, refugees from conquered worlds, and ambassadors from civilizations that had remained free by hiding in the dark between stars. The hegemony came to Earth believing we were weak, Seo Jun said to the assembled delegates. They left knowing we are strong. But more importantly, they left knowing that any species can be strong if they choose to fight. The holographic display behind him showed the current state of hegemony space. Red zones marked active rebellions on over 100 worlds. Yellow areas indicated systems where alien control was weakening. Green dots represented free worlds that had declared independence while the hegemony fleet was trapped at Earth. The war for our world was never just about our survival, Seojun continued. It was about proving that the hegemony could be beaten, that their empire could be challenged, that freedom was possible for any species brave enough to demand it. The delegates listened in silence as Seojun outlined humanity's next phase. Earth's hidden colonies would provide bases for liberation movements. Human technology would be shared with resistance groups. Most importantly, the galaxy would know that the age of easy conquest was over. Admiral Kale's ships escaped the solar system, but they carried with them something more dangerous than any weapon. The knowledge that their next easy conquest might not be easy at all. Word would spread through the hegemony military that Earth had cost them nearly half a fleet and inspired rebellions across their empire. The myth of hegemony invincibility was broken forever. As Earth's sun rose over the scarred but unbroken world, General Tae-ho stood on the surface for the first time in months. The devastation was real in many places, but so was the hope. Humanity had faced extinction and chosen to fight. They had been outgunned and outnumbered, but they had refused to surrender. Most importantly, they had shown the galaxy that even the mightiest empire could be bled, could be broken, and could be beaten by people who refused to accept defeat. The war for Earth was over. The war for galactic freedom had just begun.